Hey everyone, Zeddy here again to the brand new video, and we are at the tail end of our review series. We have covered all 10 classes, and now we are looking at the neutral card set. We will be reviewing them on a 5-star scale basis. 5 stars being a god tier card included every single deck, 1 star being unplayable trash, you wouldn't take an arena. And we'll be trying to do this a little bit quicker. There's a lot more neutral cards than class cards, and a lot of them are pretty underwhelming, so there's not much to talk about the card. I'm going to go over it pretty quickly. So let's get going with the neutral set. We'll start with Intrepid Initiate. It's a 1 mana 1/2 minion spell burst, gain +2 attack. So it's a neutral flame imp. If you play the coin, you get a 3/2. You play backstab, you get a 3/2. It's not quite the power level of Small Time Buccaneer because playing a spell can be a little bit harder than having a weapon equipped, but it's not very far off. This card seems absolutely insane and will probably be included in pretty much every aggressive deck that runs any remnants of a cheap spell or just wants to high roll having the coin. I'm giving this a 5. It seems busted. It seems completely broken. It's like, yeah, it's a 1 mana 3/2. It's crazy. And I'll give it a 5 in standard and wild. It's going to pop up in aggro decks there too. Why would you not run a 1 mana 3/2? We'll find out, I guess. Next we have Sneaky Delinquent. It's a 2 mana 3/1 stealth. Death Rattle out of the 3/1 goes to your stealth to your hand, which is basically itself. Like you play 2 mana 3/1 stealth, you play another one. Pretty underwhelming. Not bad, not great. It's okay. I'll give it a 2 in standard and wild. We have Wand Maker, 2 mana 2/2 Battlecry, add a 1-cost spell from your class to your hand. Don't think any deck in standard is going to run this, but it's not a bad card, so I'll give it a 2. In wild, Quest Mage might consider it, whether it be Highlander or regular Quest Mage, but again, I don't think it'll quite make the cut. Maybe on Reno, but still probably not good enough. I'll give it a 2 in wild as well. Next we have Enchanted Cauldron. It's a 3 mana 1/6 minion spell burst, cast a random spell at the same cost. It's a one-time, you get a mana cheat of a random spell. Seems memey, doesn't seem good. I'll give it a 2 in both standard and wild. We have Divine Rager, 4 mana 5/1 Divine Shield Elemental. You're never ever putting this in a deck, ever. It's a 1 in standard and wild. We have Fishy Flyers. It's a 4 mana 4/3 Murloc with Rush, Death Rattle, add a 4/3 Ghost with Rush to your hand. It's 2 4/3s with Rush. That's not particularly bad. I just don't know what deck you'd ever really care about this in. And you got to spend 8 mana to do that. So I'll give it a 2 in standard and wild. Pretty cool card though. I love the art. Next we have Ogre Manser, 5 mana 3/7. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, summon a 2/2 skeleton with taunt. Wow, it's kind of like Trogzor, but still really, really bad, just like Trogzor. I'll give it a 2 in standard and a 1 in wild. We have Smudge Senior, 6 mana 5/7 taunt. Death Rattle, add a 5/7 Ghost taunt to your hand. In standard, you get some value, you get a couple taunts. They're not badly statted, but I don't think you're putting this in your deck, so I'll give it a 2. In wild, there's consideration for Quest Warrior, where you get to play 2 taunts, and they're pretty annoyingly big-sized taunts, so I'll actually give it a 3. I think it could pop up in Quest Warrior, which has always been a relatively playable deck, but maybe it's too expensive. I don't know. Next, we have like Thresher, 5 mana 4/6 Beast. Also damages the minion next to him whenever it attacks. There's synergy with the dual class spell that can cheat out 5-drops and give them Rush. This can have a cleave effect. It's actually pretty good, but if you've seen my review on those cards, I don't think they quite make the cut, and I don't think this card does that. So I'll give this a 2 in standard and wild. Won't really be good enough. We have Death Gimp. It's a 0 mana 1/1 demon, and that's about it. 1 star in standard and wild. We have Crimson Hothead, 4 mana 3/6 dragon. Spellburst gains +1 attack and taunt, so you can get a 5/7 with taunt with a spell, and it's a dragon. Don't know if that's good enough. It might be. That's a lot of stats, but it's fringe. I'm gonna give it a 2. It's not as bad as it looks. 4/7 with taunt is pretty good, but again, you have to invest the spell in it, and that can make it a little bit awkward. And in wild, same deal. I'll give it a 2. I just think it's too awkward to make work. Next, we have Plagued Protodrake, 8 mana 8/8 dragon. Death Rattle, summon a random 7-cost minion. It's a really pretty crazy card, but I don't think you're hard running it because it doesn't do anything when you play it. Playing an 8-drop these days when you can't do anything with it is pretty brutal. You can cheat it out with like Frizz, I guess, and play it for 6, but that high roll's pretty high. And again, even then it doesn't do anything, but it's not a bad card per se. It's definitely going to be a pretty frustrating card when you see it off of Dragon Queen, or someone randomly discovers it in the right spot. But I'll give it a 2 in standard and wild. Next, we have Robes of Protection. It's a 3 mana 2/4, and it gives your minions can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. That includes itself. We've seen this effect before in like Wii Stopper and things like that, and those have never paid off. But this hits every single minion, and it's relatively cheap. This could be a relatively stealth kind of like good card. I'm gonna give it a 3. I think it could see play in especially like a zoo deck or something like that. I mean, the warrior decks with like risky skipper and stuff don't care, but there's a lot of spell heavy decks where this might be really irritating, especially like against priest. How are they gonna interact with your board at all? And wild, I'll give it a 2. I don't see it making play. Next we have animated broomstick. It's a 1-mana 1/1 with rush. Battlecry give your other minions rush. Pretty cool effect, like you're playing a token deck or a zoo deck, and you just get to dictate all the trades. It might see play in something like that. You can even give itself, well, it already has rush, but it has magic carpet synergy, kind of. I don't know, rush is always powerful, and giving everything else rush seems good, so I'll give it a 3. I think it could pop up in some standard decks, and wild, probably not good enough. I'll give it a 2. Next, we have reprint number 3, Tour Guide. Yes, this is the 3rd version of this. We've had Water Boy and Fencing Coach, and now we have Tour Guide. Battlecry, your next hero power costs 0. It's a 1-mana 1/1. These cards have historically never seen play, and I don't see this one either, so I'll give it a 2 in standard and wild. We have Steward of Scrolls, 5-mana 4/4 elemental, spell damage +1. Battlecry, discover a spell. So basically, Azure Drake, instead of drawing a card, you discover a spell. Discovering a spell is a little bit worse than drawing a card, not much, but yeah, probably doesn't make the cut in standard. It's a good card, but yeah, even Azure Drake probably wants to see that much play, but it's still, to me, worse than that, so I'll give it a 2 in both standard and wild. Now we have Voracious Reader. What is this? 2-mana 1/3 minion. At the end of your turn, draw until you have 3 cards. This is Jeeves, except it's one-sided in your favor. It has 1 less health, but costs 2 less mana, isn't a mech. This is broken. This card is legitimately broken, and I don't know how this is being made. This gives any aggro deck insane draw. It's ridiculous. Like, how do you justify making Jeeves for 2 mana? The card still sees play in wild, and we all know how degenerate wild is. This is 5 in standard, 5 in wild. This card is broken. This card is absolutely, unequivocally broken. I do not understand this at all. I saw this, my jaw dropped, and I don't get it. I don't get it. How is that a card? What the hell? And it's not even a new card. It's just a reprint, but it's better than the other really good one. I don't get it. We have Mana Theater Panthera, 2-mana 2/3 beast, Battlecry. If you use your hero power this turn, draw a card. It seems really good in Demon Hunter with your 1-mana hero power. Really good in wild with an even deck. I'm gonna give it a 3 in standard and wild. It just seems really good. We have Sorcerer's Substitute, 6-mana 6/6 Battlecry. If you have a spell damage, summon a copy of this. So it could be a 6-mana 12/12. All the spell damage stuff I've seen, none of it wants to do this type of strategy, and I don't think it's gonna see play. I'll give it 2 in standard, a 1 in wild. If it was odd cost, then maybe an odd shaman, but it's not odd cost. Next, we have Educated Alec, 3-mana 3/4 beast. Whenever a spell is played, the minion remembers it. In the death rattle, shuffle all the spells in your deck. This card's really rad, really cool. It also copies the enemy spells. Thing is, then you're going to be drawing spells for the rest of the game, and a lot of them might not be good. It's a really sweet meme card, and I know some people are going to do some really cool stuff with it. But I'm reviewing on a more of a competitive level of cards, and I don't see this being competitive in standard or wild, despite the fact it's a premium statted tribal minion. I'm going to give it a 2 in standard and wild, but it's really cool. Next, we have Keymaster Alabaster. Speaking about cool cards, we have a 7-mana 6/8. Whenever your opponent draws a card, add a copy to your hand that costs 1. In standard, there's not a lot of support for this. You have like Glide or whatever. You could be greedy, play it, and your opponent draws 1 card. You get it for 1, then they'll remove it, but don't see it. It's a really cool greedy card, but I don't see it in standard. I'll give it a 2. But in wild, you got Cold Light Oracle. You got Naturalize. You got some really stupid garbage you can do with it. Whether they'll be good or not, I don't know. But it's going to see play because I'm going to play it, and some other people will too. We'll try and make it work. I doubt it'll work, but I think you might be able to greed it up. I'll give it a 3. It's not a 3, but I'm giving it to it. Next, we have Vectus, 5-mana 4/4 legendary minion. Battlecry, summon 2 1/1 whelps. Each gains a death rattle from your minions that die this game. So right out of the gate, this is a 5-mana 6/6. So that's pretty good. Second, you get death rattles that have died this game. That's insane. This card is nuts. Any Death Rattle deck would love this card. Like, any Death Rattle, why would you not put this in there? It's not even that expensive. 5 mana, you get a Twilight's Call, or whatever it's called, from Priest, on a body. It's crazy good. But only in Death Rattle decks, obviously. So, I'll give it a 4 in Standard and a 4 in Wild, because there's a lot of decks that will like it in Wild, too. Card is just very powerful. Next, we have Sphere of Sapience, 1 mana, 0/4, neutral weapon, first time ever. At the start of your turn, look at your top card. You can put it on the bottom and lose 1 durability. So it's Scribe from Magic the Gathering. You basically get a tutor draw somewhat. You get an option. You get to see what you would draw. You get to see what you would draw that turn, and if you don't like it, put the bottom of your deck and then draw another card. So this is really nice to, like, just, you know, give yourself more consistency, but how much is that worth in a 30-card Hearthstone deck? I'm not entirely sure. I guarantee you there'll be decks that will want to run this and play it, so I'm going to give it a 3 in Standard. In Wild, there's a bit more implications to this, because you have Twig. In Druid, you can play Twig, Sphere, and you immediately get 10 mana. You don't have to run some garbage card like Blingtron to make that work, or Medivh. So maybe Twig comes back. Maybe it's good enough there, too. So in Wild, I'm going to give it a 3 as well. And of course, there's other decks that could utilize just to want the consistent draw. Maybe even like a Mecha'thun Lock wants this just to make sure they find their good stuff better. So, yeah, really cool card. I really like that one. And next one I like a lot too is Keeper Pulkia. 4 mana, 4/5, Battlecry. Reorder your deck from the highest card to the lowest card. So, really good on like greedy high-end decks. You play this and then you're just going to curve out into all your good stuff. You don't want to play on 4, obviously, but later in the game. And then, of course, there's ways to manipulate with, like, Quest Warlock, where you put Malygos into your deck, and then you can make sure you kind of tap into it, or at least a really good chance of it. And that's very powerful. I love that this card really encourages you to build your deck in a specific way, and then you get to be rewarded for that deck building, but it's not explicitly telling you how to do that. It's my favorite type of, like, creative, interesting design. Whether it's overpowered or not, and it breaks the game, I have no idea, but I like that they're taking a risk making a card like this, and I think it's really cool. So in Standard, I'm going to give it a 4. I think there's a lot of utilization for it. In Wild, you have like the Holy Wrath Molten Giant high roll thing that could be pretty disgusting. If you're holding a Holy Wrath already, you can just play this and 25 damage. That's insane. So I'll give it a 3 in Wild. I think it'll see play in both formats. It's pretty nutty. Next, we have Penflinger, 1 mana, 1/1 minion, Battlecry, deal 1 damage, Spell Burst, return this to your hand. It's Elven Archer with upside, but it's still Elven Archer. Not going to be good enough in Standard Wild. I'm going to give it a 1 across the board, but we all know someone's going to meme with it and hit for 30 damage. I'm looking at you, Mark. I know you're going to do it. Next, we have Headmaster Kel, 5 mana, 4/6, Spell Burst. If the spell destroys any minions, summon them. So you, like, play this in Brawl, you get, like, all the minions back. That's pretty nuts. But yeah, it's just kind of a greedy, kind of clunky card. These typically never have worked out in the history of Hearthstone. 2 win more, too greedy, too hard to set up. I'm going to give it a 2 in Standard and Wild, but there is potential. Next, we have Onyx Mage Scribe, 6 mana, 4/9 dragon, so not the greatest stats, but it's very hard to remove. It's got 9 health, and Spell Burst, add 2 random spells from your class to your hand. You might run this in Reno, Quest Mage, and Wild. In Standard, I don't see a place for this at all, so I'm going to give it a 2. But like I said, on Wild, Reno, Quest Mage, you might want to find more ways of generating spells. It's the only deck I really see this in, and I still feel like there's just better options, so I'll give it a 2 in Wild as well. Next, we have Cult Neophyte, 2 mana, 3/2, Battlecry. Your opponent's spells cost 1 more next turn. It's nice to have some spell disruption in the game. Unfortunately, historically, 1 cost more on spells has never been good enough. There's been other cards that have done that. This is the best statted, the most tempo-based one you can play. And I still don't think it really ever makes the cut in either format. So I'm going to give it a 2 in Standard and Wild. We have Transfer Student, 2 mana, 2/2. This is different effects based on which big game board you're on. You can look up what they are, but they can vary from having like Reborn to being stealth poisonous to all sorts of stuff. Overall, the effects are pretty good. This card's not bad. It sees play in Standard. I'll give it a 3 there. In Wild, I've experimented with it. A lot of us have. But it's already kind of fallen off. Not many people play it unless they're memeing, so I'll give it a 2 for Wild. And lastly, we have Wretched Tudor. It's a 4 mana, 2/5 minion. Spell Burst, deal 2 damage to all other minions. This is a pack filler. It's like, here, this is what Spell Burst does. you're never putting this in your deck. So 1 in Standard, 1 in Wild. And that's it. That is every single card from Scholomance Academy reviewed. Hope you guys enjoyed the review series. I think this set is absolutely crazy. The power creep in it is pretty nuts, so the meta is definitely going to shift, potentially in both formats, although Quest Mage might have to say something about that. I think the design of these cards is the most creative we've seen in a long time. So at least if the cards are ridiculously overpowered, they're very interesting, and the game should be at least refreshingly different for a little bit until we get sick of losing to the same broken stuff. But when does that cycle ever end in Hearthstone? So if you like the review series, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. It's been a lot of fun making these, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I did making them. We'll have a couple of special videos coming up soon, so make sure to keep notified of the channel alerts for that. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.